be sitting at home, playing video games and wasting their time. No, I don't think so. I think public schools should not. Dunyo xafa bo'ladi.
Dunyo seni tovug'ing emas. Hello everyone, welcome to IT School YouTube channel. And today we are going to have a podcast with one of the top SIT instructors in Uzbekistan. It's Abdulaziz Sharopov. Assalomu alaykum Abdulaziz aka.
Assalomu alaykum.
Rahmat bizning podcastimizga rozi bo'lib kelganingiz uchun. Birinchi o'zingiz haqingizda tanishtirsangiz.
Thank you very much for having me. It's quite an honor to be here as your very first guest of the IT School podcast. As you've mentioned, my name is Abdulaziz Sharopov and I've been instructing SAT for the past 2 years. Within these 2 years, we've gained some amazing results from both the SAT and from university applications.
Men bilishim bo'yicha siz O'zbekistondagi eng qimmat bo'lgan o'qishlardan bittasi TAS'ni bitirgansiz, to'g'rimi?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not one of the most expensive, it is the most expensive educational institution here in Tashkent. It's called Tashkent International School. It is a high school which costs $27,000 to study. And luckily, I didn't have to pay that money. They gave me a full scholarship worth $90,000 to study there from 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade.
Endi o'z yutuqlaringiz haqida gapirsak, ya'ni qaysi universitetga kirgansiz, scholarship amountini aytib bersangiz, keyin o'z yo'nalishingiz, keyin qaysi davlatda joylashgan u narsa.
All right. So after graduating Tashkent International School, I received a full scholarship from Northwestern University in Qatar. This is an American university which has a campus in Doha, Qatar. They gave me a full scholarship of $260,000, which covers my tuition and my accommodation.
Men bilishim bo'yicha ko'p o'quvchilar abroadga study o'qimoqchi bo'lsa, faqat USAni tanlaydi ko'pchilik. Nega imенно Qatar tanlashmaydi masalan, sizga o'xshab yoki qolgan joylarni tanlashmaydi? Nega imенно USA?
I think the biggest reason for why students apply to universities in USA is because they offer such generous scholarships. Even though university in the United States can be worth over $100,000, still there's an opportunity to win a full scholarship. Now, the reason why Qatar is still a good option is because there are also opportunities to win a full scholarship while still having a high level of education.
What do you think about Ilyurt Umida Fund?
I think Ilyurt Umida is a great foundation that was opened by Uzbekistan. It allows students who want to study abroad to have this opportunity and to be fully funded by the government. Now, some students would complain that Ilyurt Umida requires them to come back after graduation and it requires them to work for 5 years. However, this is not as bad as you might think. From what I know, students who graduate Ilyurt are actually getting very good jobs when they come back to Uzbekistan. Plus, they also get higher salaries for those same jobs just because they're Ilyurt graduates. So, if you come from a family who wants you to come back after studying in the United States, then I think Ilyurt is a perfect opportunity for you.
Masalan, tasavvur qiling, biz universitetga kira olmadik-da, yana bizning o'rtamizda gap year qoladi-yu. It's okay to take a gap year?
Very great question. A lot of students that come to me often ask, Mr. Abdulaziz, I need to get accepted this year, because if I don't get accepted this year, I need to take a gap year. A lot of students are afraid of gap years. It's almost like a nightmare for them. However, I would like to tell students that it's not too big of a worry. Understand that it's only 1 extra year that you'll spend preparing for university. And think about it. Statistically, if you spend more preparation time, you're more likely to get into a better university with a higher scholarship value. And plus, for the students who feel like they're truly wasting a year, think of it as an opportunity to learn more about yourself and to prepare yourself to become a better person. Your life should not become a rat race where you're trying to race to the top. You don't know how long you are going to live. Maybe you're going to live 5 years extra more than people around you, or maybe even 5 years less. So why does it matter for you to spend an extra year preparing for university? And so there's a stigma right now that taking a gap year makes people feel like a loser. However, I don't feel that way. When I chose to study at Tashkent International School, I was already about to graduate Westminster Lyceum, and I had to spend 2 extra years studying at TIS. For me, it wasn't a big deal because I knew those 2 extra years, I wasn't wasting them. I was taking 2 extra years to study at TIS, a prestigious school. And even right now, it's benefited me so much. Spending 2 extra years at TIS really opened my eyes to the possibilities that are around the world. And it's even one of the reasons why I was able to win a full scholarship from it was one of the reasons why I was able to win a full scholarship from Northwestern University.
Shu gap year ichida o'quvchilar, ya'ni studentlar nima qilish kerak? Mana shu gap year ichida o'zi xohlagan universitetga kirish uchun.
So first thing what you want to do is prove that you are actually using your time valuable for your parents. A lot of parents do not want their children to be taking a gap year, mainly because of one fear. They fear that their children are just going to be sitting at home, playing video games, and wasting their time. If you're able to prove to your parents that you are not going to be wasting their time, believe me, most parents are going to be okay with you taking a gap year. So how can you do this? Well, you can create a list of plans, what you are going to do for the upcoming months. Tell them that in September you are going to be doing this, this, and that. In October you are going to be preparing for SAT, or maybe doing additional research. Maybe you're going to start taking online courses for how to write better essays. Just create a to-do list and show that to your parents. And that way they'll believe you and they'll see that you're actually using your time valuably. And then the second thing is to actually do the things on those to-do lists. If you actually live up to your promise and have a productive gap year, it can be very useful for you.
IELTS qanchalik rol o'ynaydi, ya'ni universitetga kirish uchun?
So if we're talking specifically about American universities, IELTS does not play as big of a role as most students think. IELTS is simply a test which shows how well you know English. And it's important for American universities to see you as an international student, if you know English or not. But apart from that, it does not play any bigger role. That's why IELTS is just a requirement. Some universities require 6.5, some of them require 7 or 7.5. So if you're able to reach their requirement, that's all you need. If a university requires 7, one student might have 7, another student 8.5. But the university does not look at them in any other way.
Mana ko'pchilik o'rtalarim bor-da. Ular ya'ni 7 olgan, 7,5 bor, lekin ular men 8 olishim kerak, 8,5 olishim kerak, uje menda vaqt qolmadi deyshadi-da. 8,5 olsam gavarga kiraman. Shunaqa gap yuradi. Ularga qanaqa qaraysiz?
Well, if their goal is to apply to American universities like Harvard, then their IELTS score plays literally no role. I need students to understand this. Everyone in the United States is a native speaker. Almost everybody, especially at these top universities. They don't know the difference between IELTS 7 and IELTS 8.5. Think about it like this. There are 2 ants on the ground. One ant is 50% stronger than the other ant. You as a human, are you able to tell which ant is stronger than the other? No, because they are both ants. And so you could think about it from this perspective as well. The academics at these top universities, think of them as the people, and you and your friend as the 2 ants. As long as both of you have 7, and if one of you have 7.5 or 8.5, the universities are not even going to be able to tell the difference.
Nega hozirgi paytdagi shu high schoolda bitiruvchi o'quvchilar faqat abroad universityga kirish xarid qiladi. Ya'ni bizda ham filiallar bor, masalan Westminster filiali bor, Webster bor. Nega diplom bitta, to'g'rimi? Nega ular abroadga borish xarid qiladi?
I think it's not just because of education, but it's also for other reasons. If you study at universities abroad, you'll be exposed to a wide variety of people who are not Uzbek, who are from Germany or from Canada, USA, China. You'd be able to open up your network to a wide variety of different people and different cultures. And there's also the benefit of traveling. It's very important for any individual to have the opportunity to travel somewhere else. And along with traveling, the level of independence. To grow into an adult, you need to be able to live abroad and live without anybody else taking care of you. And university provides the best opportunity to improve this way, to improve your ability to be independent.
Endi SAT haqida gaplashadigan bo'lsak, SAT qanchalik rol o'ynaydi, ya'ni universitetlarga full scholarship bilan kirish uchun?
So the purpose of the SAT is to test your cognitive ability. This means how well you can react to different types of questions, whether you can think critically and whether you can handle an academic environment. So students with a high SAT score, they are literally showing the university that they are more capable of handling the university program. And that's why it's very important for you to get an SAT score. Now, yes, universities are currently SAT optional, but what exactly does optional even mean? This means you can apply without the SAT, but it does not mean the SAT is useless. Think about it almost like this. Imagine in that room over there, there's a fight that's happening, and you need to join the fight. Before you enter that room, a person tells you, you could bring in a knife, but a knife is optional. Well, sure, you can go into that room without a knife, but your chances of survival are very low. It's the same thing with the SAT. The whole university application process is a competition. And so the SAT gives you one extra advantage above other people to succeed in that competition.
Shunda hozir SAT olgan yaxshi birinchi yoki IELTS olgan yaxshi birinchi?
So a lot of students would think that it's better for them to take IELTS and then SAT because IELTS is easier. However, I would argue the opposite. If you have an intermediate level of English, you can start IELTS preparation or SAT preparation. And so it's better for you to start with SAT. Let's say that you spend 5 to 6 months preparing for the SAT, working as hard as possible every single day. And let's say that you do score SAT 1,450, SAT 1,470. Well, now, when you actually take the IELTS, you'll have a much higher chance of getting the band score. It might be 7, it might be 7.5. We've had examples of students like this as well. I've had this one student, his name was Said Kamal. He came to our SAT course with 6.5 IELTS, and he studied in our intensive course that lasts for 3 months. And afterwards, he took the Duolingo exam and got the same equivalent as IELTS 8.5. Imagine getting IELTS 6.5, preparing for the SAT for 3 months, and then improving your score up to IELTS 8. And so for this reason, I believe it's better for students to just prepare for SAT first. It's easy, it's harder, and because it's harder, it makes it easier to take IELTS afterwards.
As you mentioned, your students took the Duolingo English test, right?
Yes.
What's the difference between Duolingo and IELTS?
Well, the Duolingo plays the exact same role as IELTS. It tests your ability to understand English. The reason for why it's better is because it's more convenient to take Duolingo. For IELTS, you need to register with your passport, you need to set up which test day you're going to take the exam, but when it comes to Duolingo, you don't need any of that. You just need to set up an account on Duolingo, and afterwards, you can take the test anytime you want. And because you take it from your computer, you can take it at home, you can take it in the mountains, literally anywhere, at any time. Another benefit of Duolingo is that it's actually cheaper than IELTS. Students right now pay about $200 to take the IELTS exam. But for Duolingo, it only costs $50. You can literally take Duolingo 4 times instead of taking IELTS just once. And finally, the best reason is the amount of time it takes to get your results. For IELTS, you need to wait about 2 weeks for the results to come out. But for Duolingo, it's a maximum of 2 days. So you can literally take the Duolingo exam right before your university deadline and still be able to apply just in time.
Eski SAT bilan hozirgi yangi digital SAT'ning farqini bilasizmi? Ya'ni bir xil aytyapti, SAT'ning yangisi digital SAT osonroq deyapti, bir xil qiyinroq deyapti. Unga qanaqa qaraysiz?
I would say that the old SAT and the new SAT are just different. The new SAT is certainly easier in some ways, but it can also get harder in other ways. I've noticed that the content on the new digital SAT is easier. That means you'll have easier questions with easier answer choices. However, the structure has significantly gotten harder. For example, the math test. The math test now includes 44 questions only, which means if you make one mistake, you are probably going to lose about 20 points instead of 10 points in the past. And as well as the structure for the new English section. Now you have 54 questions for only 64 minutes, which means if every single question has its own paragraph, you'll need to read 54 individual unique paragraphs, and you only have 64 minutes. So yes, in some ways the new SAT is easier, but in other ways it is definitely harder.
Kelayotgan, ya'ni martda 11-marta bo'lgan yangi digital SAT topshiruvchilarga qanaqa maslahat berasiz? Ular chunki hali formatini yaxshi o'rganmagan, ya'ni imtihonga kirib ko'rmagan. Nima maslahat berasiz o'zini yaxshiroq tutish uchun?
Well, first of all, I would like for students to not be as scared as a lot of people are. Right now, students are fearing that because they don't know anything about the new test, they're probably going to get a low score. But remember, the SAT score is entirely based on how everyone takes it around the world. If everyone is not prepared, then as long as you are slightly more prepared than other students, you are likely to get a high score. So I want students to understand that it's not just them who is in a situation of confusion. At the moment, everybody is confused, which means there's really no reason to worry. Just keep preparing with the materials that you have right now and make sure that you are at least slightly more prepared than other students.
SAT sferasiga kirib kelmoqchi bo'lgan o'quvchilarga math skills qanaqa bo'lishi kerak ularni? Nima advice berasiz? Qayerdan boshlash kerak mathni ular?
Well, if you're planning to self-study, that means you really do need to have a high level of math. But if you do plan on joining our courses, you actually just need a basic knowledge of 9th grade algebra. If you've studied 9th grade algebra at public school, then you do have the level to study in our course.
Rahmat javoblar uchun. Endi universitetning application processdan haqida gaplashadigan bo'lsak, men bilishim bo'yicha o'zini componentslar bor, to'g'rimi? Shu haqida gapirib bersangiz.
Okay, so compared to Uzbek applications, for applying to United States, there's a lot of different components. Here in Uzbekistan, you only need to have IELTS, you need to have your school transcript, and a copy of your passport. However, to apply to United States, you need to have your high school scores, an SAT score. On top of that, you'll need to write essays that the university requires. You will also need to have recommendation letters from your teachers, as well as a portfolio of different extracurricular activities. After that, make sure that you have a decent social media profile and an IELTS score.
Siz hozir social media haqida gapirib o'tdingiz. Ya'ni u qanaqa bo'lish kerak? Ya'ni o'quvchi prezentativ bo'lish kerakmi yoki qanaqadir narsani ochib berish kerakmi?
Well, when it comes to your social media profile, it doesn't really matter what you post, but as long as it's presentable. You want to make sure that the university does not see you as some kind of student who posts black and white photos, who takes pictures in front of some kind of BMW, holding their hand like this, saying, "Oh yeah."
Oh yeah.
You don't want them to think that you're a gangster. You want them to see amazing posts of you, maybe helping the community, doing volunteering activities, or maybe just pictures of yourself. Maybe pictures of things that you're interested in. For example, I've seen students post pictures of architecture. That seems pretty cool. Or there are students who also have paintings that they've drawn. Anything that makes you seem presentable. Now you might still be wondering, what does it mean to be presentable? Well, a good test to see if your social media page is presentable is by showing your uncle. Are you comfortable showing your social media page to your uncle? Or would it make you uncomfortable? If you're totally comfortable showing your social media page to an uncle, then that means that yes, your page is presentable.
Biz bilamiz, ko'plab o'quvchilar, ya'ni O'zbekistonlik o'quvchilar 11-sinfni bitirib bo'lib, keyin harakat qiladi universitetga topshirish uchun. Masalan, men Ibrohimga topshirmoqchi bo'lsam, qachon boshlashim kerakman? O'zimni application processlarimni, deylik SAT'nimi, IELTS'mi, qachon qilishim kerakman?
Well, the application process is actually earlier for American universities. You need to finish your entire application by winter of your graduating year. This means that if you are currently studying in 10th grade, you need to finish your application by this December. So, my recommendation of when to start would be at least a year before that. Start during winter of 10th grade. Make sure that you start with your SAT preparation because that's the hardest component. And also practice writing essays. Even though you don't know which topics to write about, just write a bunch of different creative essays for maybe IELTS. And from that, you can build up your ability to write. And then, when you reach 11th grade, when you're applying to universities, you'll know what types of essays to write, and you can just start writing your drafts. So, in short, make sure you start a year earlier.
What's the role of the GPA in application process?
Well, your GPA is actually the most important role. It shows universities whether you can handle their program or not. If a student is graduating high school with a perfect GPA, it shows the university that the student is willing to do hard work, is willing to hand in all of their assignments, and make sure that they get a perfect score from their exams. But if a student has a low GPA, it shows the university that you are not very competent in an academic environment. And think about it for yourself. If you have a low GPA in Uzbek high school, really, how well are you going to do when you go to United States, which is at least 10 times harder?
Bizani bilamiz, bizni bilamiz, ya'ni USA'da, abroadda 12 yillik o'quv sistemasi mavjud, to'g'rimi? Bizda 11 yillik. Bizani GPA'miz qaysi yildan o'ziga qamrab oladi?
Well, I would recommend students to focus on 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade. Basically, the last 4 years of their education. Now, you could consider 8th grade to be your freshman year, just like Americans have 9th grade as their freshman year. And our Uzbek 9th grade would be the American 10th grade. You can just make it a simple conversion like that. When it comes to the application process, there's a very easy way to show the university that your 11th grade is your graduating year.
I got a fun question for you. Like, you know, ko'pchilik ota-onalar o'zini qizini universitetlarga, ya'ni chet elga yuborish xohlamaydi. O'zbekistondagi eng zo'r universitet, ya'ni qizlarga recommend qiladigan aytib berasizmi?
Very interesting question. If I had to choose one university for Uzbek girls to apply to, it would probably be Westminster University. Westminster University has been around for about 25 years, and some students might say, oh, Westminster, everybody knows about that. But it's a reliable university. I know a lot of amazing people who graduate that university and become very influential in the future. And another great part about Westminster is that you don't even have to study. You can graduate just by getting a good score on your exams, as well as writing your coursework. I mean, that's just what I know. And so I would say that Westminster is probably a great option. There are many new universities opening here in Tashkent. For example, we have Akfa University for medicine and construction. We also have universities like Team University, which are great for entrepreneurship. But I believe those universities take some time. We need to just wait and see how great those students graduating those universities are going to become.
What do you think about the current education system in Uzbekistan?
When it comes to public education here in Uzbekistan, I would say that yes, there are a lot of complaints that people would make. People complain about the conditions of public school, that the teachers are not really that great. But really, there's not much you could change. What exactly are you going to change? The teachers? Where are you going to find better teachers? And likewise, what kind of different subjects would you want students to learn? Not everybody has to apply to United States. Not everybody has to become a doctor. Not everyone has to become a politician. Some people don't want that. And I think that the public education system allows students to just learn general information about life. For example, mathematics, about biology, physics. You might say that you don't remember anything from school, but why does that really matter? If you really want to become a mathematician, just focus on math during your own time. If you really want to become a pilot, maybe go to special aviation school. And that's why I think private education is really where we need to put more focus, because private education allows students who want to learn just English to get the best English knowledge. People who want to just learn physics to get the best physics knowledge.
Hozirgi kunda emas, IELTS o'qitadigan o'quv markazlari juda ko'payib ketgan. Ya'ni uni oladigan bo'lsak, Toshkentda, viloyatlarda nima deb o'ylaysiz? Keyingi 5 yildan keyin SAT'ni ham o'qitadigan test sentrlar mana shunaqa ko'payib ketadi deb o'ylaysizmi?
I would hope so. I hope that there are more SAT centers around Tashkent, and I do hope that the quality of SAT centers also improve. At the current moment, there are not many qualified teachers, and that's only because the sphere is still new. It's only been about 2 years since the SAT sphere really started growing. And so yes, I do hope that within the next 5 years, we do gain some new teachers who are able to teach up to a decent quality, and we do have students who are getting really high SAT scores. I think that would be great, especially for the students getting really high scores, and it would be also very good for society as a whole, because I've noticed that students who prepare for SAT, not only are they going to get a high test score, but they also have a new understanding of how to approach problems. They become smarter in general.
Sizda o'zingizda SAT kursingiz bor, to'g'rimi? ya'ni shu sizga kelayotgan o'quvchilar ingliz tili bilish darajasi qanaqa bo'lishi kerak? SATni 100% o'rganib, yaxshi skor olish uchun.
Well, when it comes to English, I would recommend students to be at least intermediate level or above. And as I've mentioned before, they also need to have basic knowledge of 9th grade algebra. So as long as you have these two requirements, as well as a third requirement, being dedicated to your preparation, I think you can start SAT right now.
SATni, ya'ni o'zi self study qilmoqchi bo'lgan o'quvchilarga qanaqa maslahat berasiz? Masalan, ko'plar men ko'rgan o'rtoqlarim bor, men self study qilaman deydi, lekin resurslarni qarasam, qanaqadir kitob, masalan, Barron kitobi bo'ladi-da. Ularga yana qanaqadir resurslarni ayta olasizmi? Mana shundan tayyorlansang bo'ladi, mana orqali yaxshi skor olsang bo'ladi.
I think the best thing that students can start with is Khan Academy, because Khan Academy already has an SAT section available. So as long as you start on Khan Academy, you begin to learn how the SAT structure looks. Then you can start looking into different books. For example, College Pandas is a great book that teaches you about SAT grammar as well as SAT math. I would say Barron's is too complicated. The questions on the Barron's SAT is harder than what you would get on the actual exam. And for that reason, you probably should not use Barron's. A lot of people say, oh, use Barron's because it's harder. But no, if you're going to be preparing for questions that are on the SAT, don't practice with questions that are harder. Practice with questions that are actually going to be on the SAT itself. So after you finish a book like College Panda, then you can start looking at SAT past papers. You can look at SAT tests from 2018, 2019, and just start solving those.
Rahmat tashrifingiz uchun, shunchalik bizani hurmat qilib, birinchi podkastimizga kelganingiz uchun. Siz o'zingizda tilaklaringiz bormi, ya'ni sizni kuzatayotgan insonlarga?
For anyone who has reached the end of this podcast, I do know that you are very well focused and that you're interested in learning more about the application sphere. My recommendation would be to just keep doing whatever you're doing. If you're currently preparing for the SAT, keep putting in all of your effort for SAT. If you're interested in computer programming, then keep doing computer programming. Whatever you do end up doing in life, whether it's going to a foreign university to study or maybe staying here in Tashkent, just be the best at whatever you do. One thing I've learned throughout my life is that as long as you focus 100% of your effort on one or two things, you can become very great at those two things.
Rahmat hurmatli kuzatuvchilar. Bizni bitta o'yin qilyapmiz, ya'ni eng zo'r kommentariy va eng qiziq kommentariy yozgan insonni Abdulazizga tanlab oladi va unga o'zidan alohida sovg'alar bor. Rahmat kattakon.